Hey, what about this? What about that? That's a good start, but it could be better if. When did you say you could have that done? I know I told you Friday, but it'd really be good if you could have it to me 3 days earlier than that. And I know I'm only giving you 5 minutes notice, but I really need this detailed answer in the next 20 seconds. The dreaded M word. We've all experienced it, and I know what you're thinking. If you've seen Lion King, we're not talking about the scene where the hyenas go, ooh, Mufasa.
I just hear that name and I shudder. Mufasa. Ooh. Do it again. Mufasa. Ooh.
We're talking about, micromanagement, the dreaded M word. That feeling, that sense where you're just kind of getting poked nonstop by that annoying boss who just won't. And today we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about what it means, where it comes from, and why it can have a significant impact on an organization. And we may even talk about a few opportunities where maybe, just maybe, it's not the worst thing when appropriately used.
Jeff, you got the juice. You always bring it, but today there's extra juice going on. What is driving when you think of the dreaded M word, micromanagement? Tell me what comes up for you.
I'll tell you what. So I'm listening to a book right now called The Fish That Swallowed the Whale.
Ooh.
And it is about Sam the Banana Man Zemurray, a fascinating book about the banana trade in the late 1900s, early 20th century. There is a scene from the book where Sam's company had just been bought out by United Fruit, which was like the big conglomerate of fruit and banana trade out of the southern hemisphere in that time frame. And the people in Boston, where United Fruit was headquartered, were running the company into the ground because people who had never been to the banana fields were making decisions. The person on the ground was saying, I need to do this. And somebody who had no familiarity, no expertise, and nothing but a title on their door was telling them, nope, you're wrong. Do it this way. And it was killing the company. And Sam has a line from his board meeting that just resonated with me. He says, trust your manager to execute at their level, or fire them and hire somebody you do trust. But either way, get out of their way. And I just love that because that resonated with me so deeply, like this idea of hire the right people, empower them, give them the authority commensurate with their responsibility and commensurate to the level that you're going to hold them accountable, and then get the hell out of their way. You manage their performance, not their work.
Man, you are preaching today. Listen, people, buckle up because we are going places with this episode. We are going to uncover how we can get away from the perils of micromanagement. There's nothing that evokes more stress. So this banana trade story that you're talking about, how many other cautionary tales are out there for our listener to know, yeah, I've been there too, where if you would just let the expert be an expert, that doesn't mean they have to have unlimited budget. That doesn't mean that they run amok. When we allow experts to be experts and the people that we are leading and responsible for to do the work that they know best how to do, we are out of their way and we allow them to succeed. Otherwise, constant check-ins. Let's just do a little back and forth, Jeff.
Sure.
What are examples of micromanagement? Here's one, constant check-ins. How you doing?
My favorite is, this is good, but.
The red pen.
I know I asked you for X, but I think I want Y after you've spent all kinds of time on X.
Hey, I need you to copy me on everything that you send to this person because I secretly don't trust that you know what you're doing enough to be able to handle communications with them.
Yeah. Well, I just want to stay informed.
I want to be there to support you.
A friend who shared this one with me last weekend, a 20-year experience in the HR world, gave her CEO the package that the new CEO needed to have to be able to go to the board to do the right thing. Misrepresented it in the board meeting, even though they had done all the work, and then kind of handed the bag of smashed donuts back to my friend, and it was like, oh, well, this is what they gave me. And it was like, it's not what I sent you.
And then you ask yourself, why did I put all that effort into the report? What is the point of coming up with strategic recommendations? And we all know it's wrong, and we all say we don't want to do it. Why, Jeff? Why is there so much micromanagement out there?
I think that's a great question. I think it comes down to, I believe that micromanagement is the result of a lack of confidence in one's own abilities.
One's own abilities.
Own abilities first. And then, so I think it comes down to three things: lack of confidence one's own ability, pressure. So there's a deadline or looming pressure from above, some sort of external pressure being applied, and or doubt in the abilities or expertise of the people that you have in the positions.
And that last one is the one that we interpret the most personally. You don't trust me. I don't feel seen, heard, and valued. I feel like just a cog in a machine.
Yeah.
But to your point, those other elements of them, that manager not trusting themselves, or that manager experiencing extraordinary pressure from above. So you just named the three spheres of control. There is the sphere of control, which the person has exclusively control over what they do. There's the sphere of influence, in which I may not have control, but I certainly can make an impact on it with my expertise, my speaking up, my capabilities. And then there's the sphere of concern. And if a manager spends all their time operating in a sphere of concern, instead of really focusing on what they should be, they are missing out on a whole bunch of energy, effort, and expertise that's out there.
I think that's a great point. So before we get too far into this, let's baseline everything. So we're kind of operating from, if not the same sheet of music, similar sheets of music.
Okay.
How would you define micromanagement?
Micromanaging is overstepping one's positional role to influence the activities and outcomes of someone in their responsibility.
So I shamelessly stole my definition from Wikipedia as I was preparing. And so, it's when a leader exercises excessive control, oversight, and attention to detail, becoming overly involved to the point of interfering with the ability of their employees to execute their tasks.
I've gotten better at it, but I probably still do it. Control feels productive. It feels responsible that I'm a hands-on leader. I really care about my people that I'm responsible for. But over time, exercising that interference not only diminishes, but it teaches people to wait, to fear, to check, to ask permission, and to stop trusting their own judgment. So we're creating a self-fulfilling prophecy where we're creating leaders who don't believe in themselves. So they too are going to micromanage and proliferate this disease of leadership.
I think that's a great point. I think that there is an element of this being one of those, the road to hell is paved with good intention situations. I think sometimes people think they're being helpful, and they really think they're participating and being part of the team when they're doing these things that would classify as micromanagement. Some of it is the result of terrible communication. Instead of voicing, hey, I'm going to ask a lot of questions and need updates because this is not an area I'm comfortable with, but so that I can represent you as my associate, I need more information so I feel comfortable. That is much different than, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? What made you do this? What about that? What about this? One primes and sets the stage, whereas the other one opens doubt and leaves room for interpretation.
You just made me think differently about my definition of micromanagement. Can I have a do-over? I want to mulligan, and I want to get another shot at it. 2 words to define micromanagement: control, interference.
Ooh.
well-intended behavior with unintended consequences.
Yeah, it would be a neat study to know. The percentage of people who would be identified by their associates as being micromanagers, and then the number of people who would say, yup, I micromanage my team.
There was a study that was really interesting about this fact, where when you have an employee that you're responsible for who, for whatever reason, is not performing in the way that you think they need to. And there's 3 types of problem employees. One is the talented but abrasive. The second one is the charming but unreliable. And the third one is plateaued but indifferent. So you're doing this diagnosing of why someone is struggling at work. And then you start to appoint yourself as the universal fixer. For the talented but abrasive person, you're going to go in there and you're going to give them feedback on how they're showing up with others. Alienate. Charming but unreliable, you're going to go in there and give them accountability to make sure that they know that they have to be responsible for their work. Another spirit killer. Plateaued but indifferent, I'm going to light a fire under this person and make sure that they're doing what they need to do. So maybe the intention is right, and maybe the need is even there for higher accountability or higher, better oversight. It's the way we do this. And to your point, poor communication.
And I love the way you said that, because every one of those situations you described with those 3 types of employees, there's an element of feedback that is required or awareness that they need, right? I'm involved because I perceive you as indifferent. I'm involved because you're talented but underperforming, or I'm involved because. Otherwise, if you don't give them the benefit of why you're engaging, what are they going to tell themselves? What conclusions are they to draw? And maybe they are untrustworthy, but are you improving the quality of their work or the likelihood of their success just by going hands-on?
Is there ever a time when a micro lens is appropriate?
I think so. And I think of it like the Heimlich maneuver. The Heimlich maneuver is a very specific thing for a very specific, right? You don't use it when somebody's got a runny nose. You don't use it when somebody's back hurts. You don't use it when somebody rolled their ankle, right? When someone gives you the I'm choking, you apply the Heimlich maneuver. That is the only time it's appropriate.
That is such a good metaphor, because it's specific, it's urgent, it's crisis, it's singular. It's not going to happen every time. Maybe we have this visceral response to the manager who's a micromanager because every time they walk in the room, we feel like we're going to get the Heimlich maneuver from them.
Well, don't put salt on everything, right? Micromanagement is not salt that gets put on everything. I think there are times where, as the boss or as a leader, you may need to lead with more intensity, more direction, more oversight. But I think it's a very specific point in time for very specific situations, and it requires a very specific set of communication so that, hey, we have this big inspection coming up. To make sure that we're good, I'm going to do A, B, and C. I'm going to need you to do this, this, and this. This is why we're doing it, whatever it may be. And I think in those situations, it can be appropriate because it's very finite. You are, in that case, exercising micro oversight and micromanagement without that needling piece that I was talking about, right? It's not about like, why is that period a different shade of blue than the font on the slide, right? Like, okay, it's Tuesday, does that matter? Or is it really important for the accreditation of the thing? Or, hey, maybe if I am late, bad things could happen.
I love the way you defined or laid out the idea that the appropriate oversight, super oversight, it requires exquisite communication. Here is what needs to happen. Here's why I'm playing this unusual role that I wouldn't typically want to do. And here's what I'm going to get out. The temporary nature of an intervention is what makes it feel safer. If I know that you're only taking the wheel from me because right now we're in a really rough storm and I haven't had this experience before of navigating, and there's too much at stake to be putting you in that unfair position in this moment. You're going to get the wheel back as soon as we get through this particular element. In fact, there's a role that you do have to play in this moment, but I'm going to be micromanaging and then I'm going to get out. I feel respected when you tell me that, why you're doing it, what you're going to do, and when you're going to get out.
Yeah, I think that's a critical point, right? You bound it. It is for the purposes of this, or I'm doing this because. I can think of an example where we had a major inspection coming up. I was not familiar with the area or as familiar with that area as I could have been. It just wasn't where I had spent time in my career. And so I told the officer who was working for me and managing that program, I'm going to ask a lot of questions. And so that I can keep my boss off our back, I'm going to need to be very detailed. But because I don't know a lot about it, I'm going to ask a lot of questions. I'm going to explain. There's going to be a lot of show me. It's going to be a lot of this. And I need you to understand that doesn't mean I don't trust you. It means so that I can manage up, I have to get smart to talk intelligently. But it's also a great way for us to ensure that we're dotting all the I's, right? I used to call it, I'm going to leverage my ignorance. I'm going to use the fact that I don't know about this, or I'm not as well informed about this as I want to be, as a chance for, you may see it as micromanagement. I want you to think it as, you're going to teach me. And by teaching me, you're going to show me that you're all over it. And then we're going to make sure we get it right.
What a difference. That's empowering, and that's collegial. That's adult to adult versus what micromanagement typically feels like to the recipient is parent to child.
Yeah.
Adult to, I'm going to have to take over because you don't know what you're doing. When you explain, it's because the stakes are high, or because you're new to the role, or because there's a genuine safety or compliance risk, or there's a serious problem that's occurring, or there's a serious threat to our team, to our organization, in which I need to provide this additional support. That purpose and duration communication disarms me from feeling attacked or dismissed. And it allows that healthy high direction leadership that says, I'm going to stay close with you while you build this capability. I'm going to leverage my ignorance. That's really cool. I'm going to use that. Whereas micromanagement has a totally different message. What is it? I need to stay close because I don't trust what will happen without me. Very different message.
100%. 100%, right? And as you were talking there, I thought of a SMART goal. And I almost think that instead of thinking of it as micromanagement, maybe you think of it as a SMART management, right? Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound, right? So you are
time bound. Wow.
Right. So hey, I'm going to be involved and hands-on for this reason, for this purpose, for this, right? Like you're really bounding the problem, but it's that out of nowhere, hey, why is that? Why are they so involved all of a sudden? Why do they care? They've never asked. Why is anybody asking our opinion? I have a client who is an engineer, and somebody who does not possess any engineering experience began telling them how to design stuff. And he's like, how do I handle this? And it was a great point. How do you handle it? What do you do? But because that person is their boss, there's this, well, do I blindly do what I'm being told to do? But I'm the one with the credential. I'm the one who's done the work. How do you balance those things?
What a dilemma a person is experiencing when they know that they have the credentialing, they have the credibility, they have the expertise, the knowledge, and someone is coming in and exercising control in a way or in a degree that is not useful. That's one of those speak up moments that becomes very difficult. And when you have a manager who is micromanaging in a way where they, A, don't realize they're doing it, or B, they don't realize the lack of competence that they come with, is it incumbent on that employee to speak up, or is there a risk of offending or creating a scarf threat to the manager's status or their certainty or their sense of autonomy, relatedness, or fairness. It's a real dilemma. And getting into the art of trust building and trust repair is my belief the best way to ensure that when these moments come up, we as a partner in that relationship know how to handle the situation. If we can strengthen that relationship in peacetime, when conflict comes, it becomes far more effective and less threatening for us to manage through it, because we're going to step on people's toes. We're going to splash water in their well, not on purpose, but because we're trying to do our thing. It's about recognizing when we've crossed that line and doing the work to repair, knowing that often that crossing of the line is an accident. We don't mean to be micromanaging, but hey, boss, I got this. Let me do this. Nope, you know what? I need the commission is coming tomorrow to inspect. I've got to be here to make sure that it happens. It's not that I don't trust you. It's that this is a moment where we need all hands on deck to show up together as one team. Have you ever crossed that line? I know I have. I've got dozens of embarrassing moments when I realize I've been a micromanager. Has that ever happened for you?
It has. It has. Before we move on to that, though, I do want to anchor on something you said, though. That repair process is interesting, right? And that's precarious. Because I can think of people I work for that I could have gone to and been like, hey, did I do something that has brought this on? Is there something I'm unaware of? Help me understand. And that is probably my preferred way of advocating, and things that I coach folks on is like, hey, have you gone in with a curious attitude to find out what's going on? Then I think about that, and I've worked for some real chuckleheads that even when I've gone to them, that, well, if you had it, I wouldn't be involved. I love what you're saying about the repair process and the building the trust, but I'm thinking about those leaders that are either overly confident to the point of being unaware of how they impact others, and those who are masking their lack of capability by a bravado and how poorly they respond to that repair process. And I'm just wondering, like, what do we tell the listener? How would you approach that?
This is the classic situation of the Dunning-Kruger effect, which the Dunning-Kruger effect is you're incompetent, but you don't know it. It's like that, to your point, the false bravado. I can conjure bravado when I know I don't know what I'm doing, and I know that I'm trying to look like I know what I'm doing. And there's something about, recognizing that you're trying really hard in a moment that you don't know. That's very different from, I think I know how to tell you what to do as an engineer, because I stayed at a Holiday Inn last night. So let me get in there and mess with you. It's when you don't know that you're incompetent and you're not able to either consciously or intentionally recognize that you're taking over in that moment. That's the dangerous kind. When somebody recognizes that they're overstepping because they need to exercise that authority in the moment, and they can own it and say, I'm sorry, I'm going to get out. This won't be forever. I can handle that. But it's the moments where the line gets crossed and people don't realize that they're doing it. It makes it unsafe for that repair process to happen. And if that happens over and again, who's going to touch the bravery of speaking up?
No, that's hard. So hard. So hard. And I think that when you have those situations, I personally advocate still, can you help me understand, as a way of opening the door to start the repair conversation? Or my best recommendation in this case would be, hey, you're asking me to do X, but from my expertise or my experience, I think maybe X plus Y is the better answer. I still think you have an obligation to offer and to try to engage in that repair process, even when the person doing the micromanaging may not be receptive. And I know that's not easy. That's a hard conversation to have. But I think that that's a critical part of it.
Me too. And that, in my view, is integrity. When you speak up and do the right thing, even if you believe or know it's going to fall on deaf ears. Because A, there may come a day when you are heard. And to give up on that is giving up on yourself in some ways. But B, if you don't, how do you sleep well at night if you're not doing what you know is within your expertise? So how do you navigate through this without exhausting yourself, burning yourself out, or having the futility syndrome of, it's almost a nihilistic existential. Why am I even trying? For what am I doing this? Here's a tip and a thought on how to navigate it. It's a form of radical acceptance, which Tara Brach taught me that concept of radical acceptance. And it's an area that comes from dialectical behavior therapy. So it's a shrink kind of zone, but radical acceptance that I am not currently entrusted to make this decision on my own. I do not have decision authority. I may have recommendation authority, but it is a falsehood to say that I have decision authority. I'm radically accepting that that is a truism, but I'm also going to use that radical acceptance as a foundation to step over this moment into the I need to speak up anyway. And being able to be brave to A, radically accept that you're not being trusted or you're not feeling trusted or that the story you're making up is not a positive one. That's step one, radical acceptance that's happening. But then step two, the courage part, is to use that as a platform to move forward with courage anyway. Even for yourself, when you have experienced being dismissed or being diminished in some way that doesn't feel good, and you know that it's falling, that repair process might be futile. How do you manage through that?
I mean, at first in my career, I would flip the person's desk over and start cussing at them. I don't recommend that. That's a terrible approach. You're not even
lying, are you?
Yeah, no, I am. I mean, that may have been like, I kind of had those flashes like, and I never did that.
What we wish we could do, right?
I think there's the impulse of all of us want to be like, right? Like, insert expletive here.
Yes.
But I like your radical acceptance kind of married with a little radical candor. Hey, the story I'm telling myself is this, or maybe I was unclear on what happened. Help me understand. I think that there's a level of holding the mirror back and recognizing maybe I messed it up. My understanding was this. I had a boss who she loved to play Bring Me a Rock, which is the ultimate micromanagement game. Bring me a rock. And then you think you have creativity to figure out what happened. So then no, I wanted a round rock, not a jagged rock. Okay, so you bring a round rock. Well, I wanted a round rock that was blue. You brought me a red one. So then you go get I wanted one that was 3 inches in diameter, not 8 inches in diameter. And then it's like, from there, then I would begin to adapt. I would ask questions. If I didn't, hey, I need a spreadsheet that captures X. Okay. I would start to then drill down on all the things that I had been previously needled over so that I could try to get the clarity. And I realized that I was trying to suss out in that process. Is it they don't know what they want? Is it they're not communicating it well? How can I help them, right? If we're on the same team, how do I team with them appropriately? How do I also buy myself some space so that I don't get my ass chewed? So then I'll ask questions if I don't. So instead of making assumptions, hey, did you have a preference on the rock? Or can I bring you any rock? I don't have a preference how you do it. And I would leave it at that. Or you have latitude to execute with these exceptions. And I would give them the things that were important to me. And I found that to be helpful for me. Here's the things I'm worried about. You know them up front. The rest of it is yours to be creative with, and then we'll figure it out from there.
That is so smart. Listener, take a note what you just heard. Jeff just gave a mini masterclass in how to address a situation to make sure that everybody is set up for success. And the way I would summarize what you just did, Jeff, is provide the parameters.
Yeah.
That is a leadership skill that allows the other person to know where I have freedom, where I have decision authority, where I have creativity opportunity, and where I don't. No matter what, every situation has an element where the person is free. They're free to walk out the room. They're free to quit. You know, there's always an element of freedom to the task at even the tiniest level. But there also is always an element of parametric limit, right? You can't spend all the company money. You can't kill somebody to get this done unless unless it's a justified act of aggression. You can't just speak or act any way that you choose. So there's always freedom, and there's always a parameter. Providing clarity on both is the gift you give everybody. It's a gift to yourself as a leader that you're clarifying expectations and providing the context needed to succeed. It's a gift to your employee partner that you're working with by defining where they do have decision authority or freedom, creativity, and where they don't. But it's also a gift to the organization because it creates a faster ability for everybody to get to the yes. We don't do that for several reasons. One, I shouldn't have to provide context. They should know. It's kind of like in couples therapy. I shouldn't have to tell you, what I want for Valentine's Day. You should be able to read my mind and know that I don't like butterflies and I want a dragonfly piece of jewelry. Much of the time, our assumptions about what other people know about our wants, needs, likes, and preferences are a little bit of a fairy tale that we make up for ourselves. Now, basic respect, that's different. We have a right to expect basic respect in all circumstances. And when it is not exercised, we have two options. I can either reject and move on, or I can take the risk for creating repair by speaking up, setting a limit, calling it out, asking for help from either that person or another person in authority because it's not okay. But not addressing it as a leader, not cool. Not addressing it as the employee, the recipient, also not cool. You've got to address it somehow for yourself, even if that means a silent veto by voting with your feet and moving out.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point, right? I think everybody shows up to work wanting to do the right thing. And I think that people who micromanage lose sight of the fact, for whatever reason, that their people generally want to do the right thing. And I say the right in air quote. They really, I'll phrase it a different way. People want to minimize the BS in their life. So it's in my best interest to deliver maybe the minimum viable product, but I'm going to deliver something that minimizes the amount of BS I get in return for delivering it. So so assuming neutral to positive intent, why wouldn't you go out of your way as a leader, as a manager, knowing that those are two different things? As a manager, set the parameters. As a leader, set the conditions for your people to be successful. Hey, if you don't want to lead, fine, don't lead. You just want to be a manager, fine, manage. Here's what I want, when I want it, how I want it. I think most of us would be relatively happy if we were given that, right? Think about your math homework when you were in 7th grade. Have these 15 problems done by tomorrow morning. And then you knew the problems. You did the problems, turn the sheet in. It's easy. But if it was pick some problems, and if you did the ones I wanted you to do, I'll give you the points. Otherwise, you get a 0. Ain't nobody got time for that.
That element of clarity is really essential. It's a gift in some ways to give someone clarity and let them know, but in other ways, it should be minimum table stakes, as they say, minimum requirement of letting people know what you do expect the rock will consist of. That's a way of negotiating the desired truth.
Can I ask you my new favorite question for leaders I suspect to be for the leaders that I work with who I suspect are micromanagers?
Absolutely.
If your team can only succeed when you're heavily involved, is the problem you or the environment you've created for your team?
our job as leaders is not to show up and create dependencies for performance. Our job as leaders is to create teams that depend on themselves and each other to create performance. So if we are indispensable, if we are essential to that success, is that on us? That the way we're behaving? Is that on the environment that we're operating in? Bam. Either way, it's an urgent need to make a change because you're not creating a sense of agency for people. What are your thoughts on that question?
I'm almost thinking there's an application of like your weight, right? The why am I talking? Why am I leading? Right? So whale. Why am I leading? Why am I sprinkling my magic leadership dust on this problem right now? Is there anybody else who could do that? Like, why is it mine that has to be here? I think is a question that if you think you're micromanaging, I just don't know. I mean, again, right? I'm from the government. I'm here to help. Are you helping me?
Yeah, dude, that you just given a challenge. I would throw that down to everyone out there who's in a position of responsibility to take that look in the mirror. Well, why am I leading in this moment? Why am I speaking up? So I've always had a concern and an issue with the concept of radical candor.
Okay.
And I couldn't pinpoint it until this conversation. You helped me uncover why it makes me feel incomplete. Radical candor, Kim Scott posits, is about care combined with challenge. Each is necessary, neither is sufficient on its own. You've got to care and you've got to challenge. If you only care, you're the empty friend. You're not really helping me. If you only challenge, you're the A. You're the person who's not helping that person either save face or build esteem or carry forward as a whole human being. So neither by itself is enough, care and challenge. But I believe that both of those together are still insufficient. And you helped me understand why I felt that that's not a complete equation. Curiosity is the third C that is necessary for good leadership or radical candor as a partner. Care, I want this to work. I like you. I respect you. Challenge, we need this to work. And here's the accountability that you and I have to make it work. Both of those are cool, but they imply me in a parental or in a one-up position. I care, and therefore I'm going to dispense this nugget to you, this little offer of support. Challenge means I am going to push you, and because I'm above you, and I'm going to do. Curiosity is a universal leveler. Curiosity says, I may not be the smartest person in the room. I may not have it all figured out. So I want to tell, actually, I don't want to tell this story, but I feel like I need to. May I?
Please.
Okay, so I was new to a department and I was a second line leader in which my role was to empower the team through the first line leaders to create and deliver excellence in the oncology space. And this was an innovative space. There were very few treatments available for this particular disease that we were working towards. So there was a bit of an avant-garde innovation mindset, a startup kind of mindset. So I felt like hands-on. I was putting my bike up on the rack in the Google zone, and I was coming in with the pinball machine, and I was one of the gang. And I thought that that was my way of demonstrating investment, co-ownership, and support. And I happened to also be a supposed expert in this space because I had launched other products in oncology. And so therefore I muscled in there with, hey, this is the next thing we're going to do. And let me share with you how we've done it before. Thank goodness for, let's call her Bev. Thank goodness for Bev, who came to me one day and pulled me aside and said, hey, Susan, it's so awesome how much you care about this team, these patients, and this product. It's amazing. I didn't realize a but was coming. So I was like, cool, yay. But then my but got in the way, which is how it happens, right? The but was, you are getting in the way with micromanaging and making these first line leaders feel like you are the only one who can come up with the right idea or the proper path forward. Was that my intention? Absolutely not. Was I trying to feel valuable and meaningful? Maybe even if I look at my ego in the truth mirror, important. Yep. And therefore, what I was doing was unintentionally, but still accurately, disempowering people. And what Bev said to me, I will never forget this moment. It changed not only how I led in that moment, but it changed how I lead in general when I'm on my game. And that is, you get to be the customer in this case, Susan. Sit back and let the team do the work, and you get to evaluate how well they're doing. You get to be the customer. That was her way of saying, back off, Hendrich. You're in the recipe and you're messing it up. But she did it in such a respectful and caring way, and in a way of helping me see the benefit of stepping back and not micromanaging. It was her way of saying, you are micromanaging, but I understand why. That's the curiosity element of radical candor, which she used on me, that I think completes the circle. It's not just that she cared about me. It's not just that she was challenging what I was doing. She asked me the question, what would it take for you to feel safe to be a customer in this case? That curiosity helped me save face, but it also gave me a path to victory that otherwise I might have felt defensive and challenged on. Thank you, Bev.
That's awesome. That's a great gift Bev gave you. You know, I had a pivotal moment in my leadership journey where I realized I wanted to help, right? But then I reached a point where I needed to enable people to help. And I realized that things fell into three categories. There's either no, don't do that, Danger Will Robinson. Yeah, that could work. Might not be how I would do it, but it would work. Or, yep, that's exactly how I would do it. Yep, that's exactly how I would do it. We get a yes almost all the time, every time. The no, don't do it, danger alarm bell thing, that was pretty clear. But it was being able to explore and navigate and get my people to bring me plans instead of questions that allowed me to open up and relax on my side. So then really being able to look at it from a risk perspective and urgency perspective again, right? Is this something that's critical that we need to be really tight on? Or is there room here for this person to experiment and grow? Because I built my experience by experimenting and growing. So, okay, that might be one way to do it. Might not be how I would do it, and trying not to be judged. What led you there? What made you think about that? How did you get to this? What about this? And then asking them questions and then being able to give them the opportunity to run, and really kind of teaching myself that before I told somebody what to do, I needed to ask at least two questions.
Wow.
Really,
Yes.
really helped me to back up. Okay, why do you think that's the most appropriate course of action? Maybe they have a piece of information I don't know. While I was the greatest chief engineer ever, I say that somewhat tongue in cheek. You know, it was with my chief engineer on my ship that I really had to be careful with, because I was really good at that. So I wanted to help. And then I realized I wasn't helping. Okay, what do you recommend? Why do you want to do that? What about this? Have you considered that? What happens if? And then being able, again, to feel comfortable with their plan. So, hey, if they was, yup, I'm going to do it exactly the way you would do it, that's an easy yes. Probably too easy, right? Probably still should ask questions. But if it's, yeah, this could work. Okay, let's explore that. What's the risk of trying a new font, or I only want to use 2 slides instead of 120 slides, right? Like, what do you mean you want to teach a class without PowerPoint? Can you do that? Right? Okay, I want to let Susan cook. I hired Susan to do a job. Let me let Susan do her job. I want to get my money's worth. So right? So it was, for me, it was this process of how do I feel comfortable so that I can enable them to run without doing it. And I used to tell my people, you got to feed the bear. You got to come in and tell me what you're going to do. The more you feed me, the less I'm going to go looking for food. And I think that that's something that as a manager, if you are a D or a C on the disc style, where you have a bias for action and you feel like as a leader you need to lead, right? It's a verb for you. Okay, lead differently. Lead people to success instead of telling them how to get to success. Give them the opportunity. And I think that you'll see better engagement. You'll feel better. Your teams will feel better. I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling at this point, but I definitely think that that for me, that was transformative. And my approach was really like, okay, let me get them to a teaching moment where I can enable their success and create that self-sustaining leadership system instead of their success only being possible if I was the one telling them exactly what to do, when to do it. And if that's the case, why the hell do I have them?
Thank goodness you are able to have enough ego strength to be humble in that way. So many leaders don't realize that humility is a strength. Humility is I almost said macho. It's not that. It's humility is a form of power.
Yeah.
Right? Walk softly and carry a big stick means come with curiosity, come observing, come watching and allowing, instead of come in as a bull in the china closet and, taking no prisoners, so to speak. What you're doing by exercising that patience, humility, allowance for people to go out and do it their way in that moment, even if it's not the way you would have done, you're allowing two things. One, you're letting them risk failure and therefore get a learning experience out of it, unlike any other way other than falling down. But number two, you're allowing them to grow. And number three, you're allowing the possibility that there's an even better way out there than the one you've become accustomed to. That's an innovation opportunity for self. So the best leaders, I believe, are the ones who are able to put ego aside enough to allow failure, innovation, and a better way to rule the day instead of your own tried and true way. You can get compliance. You can get a win through compliance, but you won't build a leader in so doing. You're going to build someone who's fearful, resentful, or dependent. And in worst case, all three.
Well, and that's it, right? You hit the nail on the head with the word compliance. You are creating a system that drives compliance, not one that drives satisfaction, engagement, creativity, or productivity. You're going to get the bare minimum out of whoever your associates are, so that, right, I'm going to give you just enough to get you off my rear end. It reminds me of that movie Office Space, right? With Lumbert. Yeah. I can't even do my Lumbert impression right now, but started to do it and I choked, but
yeah,
yeah, right. Yeah.
We're gonna need you.
Yeah, exactly. What would you say you do around here, Peter? Right? Like, but that's the environment you're going to create. And I don't think that's what anybody wants. I think deep down inside, if we're being honest, anybody who finds themselves in a leadership position, I think they want to be good at it. I think they want to be that transformational person for somebody else that someone else was for them. And it really could be as easy as letting your people do the thing that they were hired for.
Oh man, you just said it. So every leader wants to be trusted and wants to be respected. And what if the trick to getting trust and respect is to give it?
Yeah. Can I share one more metaphor with you?
Please do.
Do you remember the old TV commercial with the shake and bake pork chops?
put them in the Ziploc bag.
Put them in a bag and you shake it, and then the little girl's like, the father comes home for dinner in the commercials, the little daughter going, "It's shake and bake, and I helped," right? You want to be the parent. You want your person to feel like they made dinner. That little girl didn't make dinner by herself. She just shook the bag for you. But you created the conditions and they did their part, and they feel like they won the day. You want to be the parent that creates the conditions for the little kid. You don't, as the leader, want to be the little kid that's like, "I helped." Because if you're helping, something isn't right. And to our point before about the Heimlich maneuver, there may be times that it's not right. There may be times that you have to exercise your positional authority and your expertise to drive an outcome. I'm going to ask you again. Is somebody choking? Because if they're not choking, don't give them the Heimlich maneuver.
So powerful. It's Russell Barkley, leading authority on attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, who introduced me to the concept of the 3 baskets.
Okay.
Basket A, if you're working with your child and you're trying to help them succeed, you have 3 different types of baskets to make decisions about when they have a specific behavior. Basket A is they're running out into the middle of traffic and they're going to die if you don't intervene. You must and should. It's a black and white thing, just like you were doing earlier. There are certain things you must act on. Basket C is stuff that doesn't matter at all. It's the color of nail polish that the kid wants to put on. It's the wearing their socks pulled up all the way or halfway. These are not consequential matters. These are moments to offer empowerment and get out of their way that lead to no negative consequence other than potentially social consequences at school that take care of themselves and the kid will learn. It's basket B. You know the saying, the devil's in the details? My view is the learning is in the B-tails. Basket B is where it's not life or death, but it's also more than just the color of socks they're going to wear that day. It's the decision about how we're going to run this project. And I loved your point earlier about, is it the way I would do it? No, but let me exercise curiosity and an assumption that there might be a way I haven't thought of. So back to my story in oncology, when I was the authority coming in and I was the wheel who knew what to do and was going to help everybody with my hands-on approach. When Bev came to me and said, "Susan, you get to be the customer, sit back and let this happen, watch it happen, and we'll wow you." Not only did they do it better than I would have done it, they took a different route. It was a completely different route. I was certain it was not as good as what I would have come up with. Not only did they do it better than what I would have come up with, our team won the President's Award that year for that project because of what they did. If we had done my tried and true proven way of doing it, would we have launched the product? Absolutely. Would the product be a success? Yes. Would it have been innovation to the point where it was recognized as a groundbreaking intervention that got the president's attention of the company? No way. So by stepping back and having humility enough to let go, because someone used radical candor of care, challenge, and curiosity with me, what would it take, Susan, for you to let go? The whole group moved forward. It just wasn't with me in the front. But guess what? I was the leader of the team that did this. I got to be part of the credit. I got to be part of the party and the celebration. But better than my being out front, I helped to create confidence in leaders by getting out of their way. Listen, this is imperfect. We're not going to do it the right and perfect way first or every time. This is imperfect, better after broken, which means by messing up and working on the repair, we create the opportunity not only for ourselves to learn, but for others to succeed and grow, letting go of our children to let them go and succeed out in the world, even if we're not with them in that moment. And that takes such courage and bravery. I'm so glad that we had this conversation and are a part of this imperfect, better after broken community. I am Susan Hendrich.
I'm Jeff Servello.
And this was an awesome conversation. And I hope folks will be bold and brave enough to step back and let others lead as you still hover, still be present, still help them shake and bake if they need to, but be bold enough to step back. This is better after broken, after all. Listen to us every week. Shit, what is it?
Every Sunday here on Sandcastle Radio.
That's it. America's hottest online variety and music station, baby. I'm probably a nightmare for them. You would tell me if it's
sense where you're just kind of getting poked nonstop